done.
Requesting return. We want to come back. We've lost radio contact, and the aircraft has been struck by lightning.
Controller, do you need any assistance for landing? Like emergency vehicles or any other support?
No, everything seems normal for now. We'll land using ILS.
As he says this, the captain begins manually controlling the aircraft and aligns it with the runway centerline. But the moment the aircraft touches the runway, it bursts into flames. And within just 70 seconds, more than half of the aircraft is engulfed in flames. This is the story of Aeroflot Flight 1492, which took off with 78 passengers on board. But what happened during landing that caused the aircraft to go up in flames? Whose fault was it? And did anyone survive this horrific incident? May 5, 2019, Aeroflot Flight 1492 is preparing to depart from Sheremetyevo Airport in Moscow, Russia, to Murmansk. The aircraft has a total of 78 people on board, 73 passengers and 5 crew members. The aircraft is a Russian-built Sukhoi Superjet 100, a relatively new aircraft model. Before this flight, it had operated approximately 2,710 hours and 1,658 flights. Flight 1492 is being commanded by 42-year-old Captain Denis Yevdokimov, who has 6,844 flying hours of experience. Also in the cockpit is First Officer Maxim Kuznetsov, 36, with 773 hours of experience. This is a routine flight, but the weather isn't great. There are severe thunderstorms with cloud altitudes ranging from 6,000 to 29,000 feet. This kind of weather is common during spring and summer in Moscow, especially near Sheremetyevo Airport. Such thunderstorm conditions are normal for this season near the airport. Pilots and airlines are trained specifically for these kinds of conditions. They have proper tools and procedures to ensure safe flight operations. Although the weather isn't unusual, it is certainly challenging. But the pilots are prepared. The takeoff process begins. The aircraft is pushed back, and taxiing to the runway starts. Visibility near the runway is good, so the control tower clears the aircraft for takeoff. The flight departs from Moscow at 6:03 p.m. local time. Up to this point, everything is normal. The aircraft climbs gradually, and the autopilot is engaged. A few minutes later, the pilots start to relax. But Captain Denis begins feeling anxious, knowing they'll soon face a thunderstorm. For about 2 minutes, the flight continued smoothly. But just as the captain feared, 3 minutes after takeoff, they see a massive cloud formation ahead. The pilots quickly realize it's a severe storm and will be extremely difficult to navigate. According to standard procedure, they should have continued along the flight path through the clouds, but due to the weather, the pilots decide to change course manually to a 327-degree heading to avoid the storm. But before they can turn fully away, the aircraft is already too close to the storm. At 6:08 p.m., while trying to steer clear of the storm, lightning strikes the plane. Flying at 8,900 feet, the aircraft experiences a loud bang and a sharp vibration, terrifying everyone on board. The aircraft lights start flickering, and passengers begin to panic, thinking their end is near. The lightning strike severely damages the plane's electrical systems. The primary radio and autopilot stop working. Now the plane must be flown manually, an incredibly risky situation. The pilots panic momentarily but quickly regain control. Captain Denis takes over and decides that the best option is to return and land at Sheremetyevo Airport. The problem is, without radio contact, guiding and landing the aircraft becomes extremely challenging. The pilots of Flight 1492 send a distress call to the airport's controllers. Pan, requesting return. Flight 1492 has been struck by lightning, and we've lost radio contact. They activate the emergency signal. For your info, Pan is used for urgent situations that don't yet threaten life or the aircraft. The pilots and controllers are now communicating via emergency systems, which only allow short messages. This makes it difficult for pilots to explain the seriousness of the situation and equally hard for controllers to fully understand it. When asked by controllers about the emergency, the pilots explain the loss of radio contact and autopilot failure. Controllers then ask if they need help with landing. The pilots respond, saying everything seems normal and they'll land the plane as usual. Communication is still active between both sides. Controllers guide the pilots. The pilots declare that they will not perform a visual landing. Instead, they will use the instrument landing system. Shortly after that, radio contact is lost completely. Now they're entirely on their own. One major challenge at this point is the aircraft's weight. With too much fuel on board, the aircraft is heavy, making landing difficult. Normally in such cases, fuel is dumped, but they are flying over the city, so that isn't an option. So they decide to attempt an overweight landing. They align the aircraft for the runway, but they miss the center line. They go around once more. Now the plane is correctly aligned. The captain prepares for landing using the overweight landing technique. Flaps are set to 25 degrees, and approach speed is increased. As the aircraft descends, everyone's hearts are pounding. Suddenly, multiple warning systems activate in the cockpit. Go around, go around. Wind shear ahead. Don't sink, don't sink. Clearly, the weather and wind conditions are not favorable for landing. They should go around again. But the pilots ignore these warnings and continue the landing. The plane reaches the runway centerline and begins to land. It touches down about 900 meters past the threshold at a high speed of 158 knots. About 292 kilometers per hour, which is far above the norm. On touchdown, the aircraft experiences a massive jolt, approximately 2.55 G-force. It bounces off the runway. When it lands again, the nose strikes the ground with even more force, around 5.85 G, damaging the nose gear. The nose gear breaks, and the aircraft bounces once more. On the third impact, the wings and fuel tanks are severely damaged, and fuel starts leaking. A spark ignites the fuel, and the plane bursts into flames, quickly engulfing the rear section. Fire alarms and other security alerts go off in the cockpit. The aircraft, now a fireball, races down the runway for a few more seconds before stopping in the grass beside it. Evacuation begins immediately. Passengers exit quickly from the front doors. The first officer escapes through the right cockpit window using a rope. However, some passengers waste time trying to retrieve their hand luggage, which delays evacuation. Many rush toward the slides. The evacuation system remains active for about 70 seconds, and many people are evacuated in that time. But soon after, the rear of the plane is fully consumed by flames. 41 people lose their lives, including 40 passengers and 21-year-old flight attendant Maxim Moiseev. Despite the efforts, only 37 people survive. Firefighters bring the blaze under control within 45 minutes. Now, why did this accident happen? First reason, electrical failure. When lightning struck, the plane's electrical systems failed, disabling many onboard systems. This made manual flying in bad weather incredibly difficult. Second reason, hard landings. The aircraft's speed and altitude were too high during landing, causing hard impacts and damaging key parts. Third reason, ruptured fuel tank, which triggered the intense fire. Investigators also noted the pilots didn't handle the landing well. Airline pilot Carleen Pettit wrote that the crash resulted from poor landing technique and possibly insufficient training. There's also the question of why such a modern aircraft, the Sukhoi Superjet, was so vulnerable to a lightning strike. The airport's emergency response was also questioned. Why did it take so long to activate the fire crews? This incident shows how small errors we often ignore can lead to catastrophic accidents. The lives lost are deeply mourned. This tragedy serves as a harsh lesson for the aviation industry. In emergencies, even small mistakes can become major disasters. That's it for today. See you in the next video. Goodbye.